You have spent this whole year asking God to fix the very thing He is the one breaking. I want to say that again, slower, because I know what it does to a person the first time they hear it. You have been on your knees, begging heaven to repair something, restore something, put something back the way it was, and the hands you have been begging are the same hands doing the taking apart. That is not cruelty, chosen one. That is not abandonment. And I am not going to hand you some cold line about how suffering builds character, because you have heard that from people who were not in the room when it happened. And it did not help you then, and it will not help you now. I am going to show you something else. I am going to show you a sequence, 4 words, in order, right out of the mouth of the Word Himself, and once you see the order, you will not be able to unsee it. It will explain the last 3 years of your life. It will explain the thing that fell apart in the season you were being most obedient. It will explain why the breaking always seems to come after the confirmation, and never before it, because there is an order to this, and almost nobody knows what it is. Stay with me. There is a moment in the Gospels that people read 1,000 times and never slow down for. A crowd on a hillside, thousands of them, hungry, late in the day, nowhere to go. A boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish, and then one sentence that carries the whole architecture of your life inside it. He took the bread, He blessed it, He broke it, He gave it. Took, blessed, broke, gave. Now look at the order. Look hard at the order, because that order is the thing that is going to set you free tonight. The blessing does not come after the breaking. The blessing comes before it. You have had it backwards your entire life of faith. You have been waiting for the breaking to end so the blessing can start. And you have read your own suffering as evidence that the blessing has not arrived yet. But that is not the sequence. He blessed the bread while it was still whole. He blessed it before a single hand touched it. And then, and only then, He broke it. Which means the breaking was never the sign that the blessing failed. The breaking was the sign that the blessing was already on you. Think about that for a second. Sit in it. You did not get broken because heaven overlooked you. You got broken because heaven had already put something in you. And the only way that something was ever going to reach anybody was through the cracks. Bread that stays whole feeds nobody. I need you to hear that in the deepest place you have. A loaf sitting on a table, perfect, uncut, untouched, it is beautiful. It is intact. And it is completely useless to a hungry man. Nobody in that crowd got fed by admiring the bread. They got fed because the bread came apart in His hands. And here is what most people miss. The multiplication happened in the breaking. Read it again if you do not believe me. The bread did not multiply in the taking. It did not multiply in the blessing. It multiplied as it was being broken and handed out. The more it came apart, the more there was of it. That is you. That is the season you are in right now. You keep counting what you have lost, and heaven is counting what you can now reach. Now let me tell you about a night in a valley, because there is a second picture of this, and it is even sharper than the first. Gideon has 300 men against an army that covered the ground like locusts. And God gives him a battle plan that no military mind in history would sign off on. No swords drawn. No charge. Every man gets a trumpet in one hand and a clay pitcher in the other, a common jar. The kind that sat in every kitchen in Israel, and inside that jar, a burning torch. They walk down in the dark. 300 men, each one carrying fire hidden inside clay. And then the command comes. Break the jars, not set them down, not open them. Break them. Smash them against the ground so the light gets out all at once, and the whole valley suddenly fills with a blaze that terrifies an army into destroying itself. Now I want you to catch what happened there, because it is the hinge of this entire message. The fire was already inside the jar. It was in there the whole walk down the hill. It was in there while they stood in the dark waiting. The fire did not arrive when the clay shattered. The fire was in the clay the entire time, and nobody could see it, and it warmed nobody, and it frightened nobody, and it changed nothing, because the container was still intact. God did not break those men to punish them. He broke the jar because the jar was in the way of the fire. And I have to be very careful and very clear with you right here, because this is where people get hurt by bad teaching. God does not break you. He breaks what is around you. Say it with me. He breaks the jar. He does not break the light. He does not break the person. He is not up there taking apart your worth, your mind, your dignity, or your body for sport. Anybody who ever taught you that God sends abuse to sanctify, you taught you something the Bible never said. And you can lay that down tonight and never pick it up again. Not every hard thing in your life is God. Some of it is the enemy. Some of it is other people's choices landing on you when you did nothing to deserve it. Some of it is simply a broken world doing what a broken world does. And some of it, and let us be honest, because honest is the only way this helps, some of it is the harvest of decisions we made ourselves. Those things are not the same thing, and pretending they are will keep you stuck for another 10 years. But there is a specific kind of breaking that carries a signature on it. And you know the difference when you are in it, because it is the one that takes the shell and leaves the thing inside untouched. It takes the image. It leaves the calling. It takes the security. It leaves the faith. It takes the version of you that people applauded. It leaves the version of you that God can actually use. You come out of that kind of breaking with less. And somehow, you are more. And if you want a way to tell the difference, because I do not want to leave you guessing on something this heavy, here it is. And it is simpler than the teachers make it sound. When the enemy breaks something, you come out of it smaller, meaner, more afraid of people than you were before. You start protecting yourself in ways that shut God out along with everybody else. And if you are honest, you can feel yourself shrinking. When God is in the breaking, you come out of it softer. That is the tell. Not stronger in the way the world means strong, softer. You find that you have less patience for pretending and more patience for people. You stop needing to win the argument in the church parking lot. You start crying at things that never used to reach you, and you cannot always explain why. Bitterness is one fruit. Tenderness is another. And they grow out of the exact same soil, which is why two people can walk through the identical loss and come out looking like opposite men. I am not telling you God authored your worst day. I am telling you, He is not wasting it. Those are two different sentences. And the difference between them is the difference between a God you can trust and a God you only obey because you are scared of Him. The God of the Bible is the first one. I think about a woman in Kentucky who ran a small business for 11 years. Not a big one, the kind where she knew every customer's first name and their kids' names too. And it went under. Not because she was lazy. Not because she sinned. It went under because the county put a highway through, and the traffic moved 4 miles east. And there is no verse for that. She told me the worst part was not the money. The worst part was standing in the empty building the last day and realizing she did not know who she was without the sign on the door. That is the jar cracking. That is exactly it. 2 years later, that same woman is doing something she would never have had a single free afternoon for while the business was open. She sits with women in her church who are coming apart, divorces, diagnoses, sons in jail, And she is the only one in the building who does not flinch when they say the honest thing out loud. Because she has been on the floor. Because she has stood in an empty room. Nobody in that church needed her sign. They needed her cracks. Let me take you to a woman standing in a doorway in Shiloh, because this one I cannot leave out. Hannah goes up to the house of God, year after year. And year after year she comes back down that hill the same way she went up. Empty. And the scripture does not soften it for us. It says she was in bitterness of soul and wept sore. That is not a woman having a rough week. That is a woman whose life has broken in the one place she cannot fix by trying harder. And she gets to the doorpost of the temple. And she prays so hard that her mouth is moving and no sound is coming out. And the priest, the man whose job it is to recognize the presence of God when it walks into the room, looks at her and assumes she is drunk. Read that again. The most sincere prayer in the entire chapter gets misdiagnosed by the professional. That has happened to you. I know it has. You have been in the deepest, rawest, most honest season of your walk with God. And the people around you read it as backsliding. They read your silence as coldness. They read your absence from the pew as falling away. They said you had changed, and they said it like an accusation, and they had no idea they were watching a woman pray without a voice. Here is what I want you to see in Hannah. She did not get Samuel because she was pleasant about it. She got Samuel because she was broken open enough to make a promise nobody makes when their life is comfortable. She promised the child back. Before she had him, she stood there with empty arms and gave away a son who did not exist yet. A whole woman does not pray that prayer, only a broken one does. And that prayer produced a prophet who anointed kings and turned the direction of a nation. The breaking of one woman in a doorway changed the government of Israel. You do not know what your breaking is producing. You are too close to it. You are inside the jar. And there is one more woman I have to put in front of you, because she made the choice on purpose. A dinner in Bethany. A room full of men reclining at a table. And a woman walks in carrying an alabaster flask sealed stone, the kind you did not open casually, holding perfume worth about a year of a working man's wages. Her whole savings in one container. Her security. Her retirement, if we are being plain about it. And she does not pour it. She cannot pour it. Alabaster flasks of that kind were sealed at the neck, made to be opened once and never resealed. So she breaks it. She snaps the neck of the jar in her hands in front of everybody. And the scripture says, the house was filled with the fragrance. The house. Not her corner of it. The whole house, every man at that table, including the ones who were annoyed with her, breathing in something they did not pay for. Now understand what that means. As long as that perfume stayed sealed, it was worth a fortune, and it smelled like nothing. Sealed value is not value anybody can smell. It sat in her house for years, and it never once filled a room. The fragrance and the breaking were the same event, and Jesus says of her, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what she did will be told. 2,000 years later, I am standing here telling you about a woman whose name half the church cannot agree on, because she broke something on purpose, in a room full of people who thought she was wasting her life. Some of you are being asked to stop protecting the seal. Let me tell you a little about myself, since we are this deep in, and you have given me your time. My name is George. I have been walking with God for a long stretch of years now, and I did not come to any of this from a mountaintop. I came to it from a season where I lost the thing I had built my whole identity on top of. And I want to be honest with you about how I handled it. because I think most teaching on this subject is written by people who skipped the ugly part. I did not handle it with grace. I handled it with anger. I spent about 14 months convinced that God had either stopped listening or had picked somebody else, and I said things in my own kitchen at 2 in the morning that I would not repeat on this channel. I stopped opening my Bible for a while, not out of rebellion, out of exhaustion. I could not stand reading promises I no longer believed applied to me. And what turned it was not a sermon. It was a sentence. Somebody who had walked further than me sat across a table and said, "You keep asking God to give it back, and He keeps trying to show you what He is doing with the pieces." I did not like it. I sat with it for months, and then one morning it opened, the way things do when the Spirit is patient with you. And I saw what I am telling you tonight, that the order is took, blessed, broke, gave, and that the giving comes last for a reason. Everything I have been able to hand anybody since then came out of that 14 months. Not out of the years before it. Out of that, which is exactly why I want to say this next part carefully. What you just experienced was not content. It was a mirror. And mirrors demand a decision. If you are ready to go to the root to finally understand why you think, feel, and perceive differently from everyone around you, the secret protocol carries the 7 keys that reveal what God placed inside you before you ever drew your first breath. Full audiobook included for every moment of your day. Plus the awakening map. As a bonus, the 5 stages of spiritual awakening, mapped with clarity, showing where you are right now and what the Spirit is releasing in this season. Link pinned in the first comment. Not for much longer. And you did not make it to the end without a reason. I am telling you about it here, in the middle of this, and not at the end, because I know exactly what happens at the end. You feel something move. You mean to do something about it. And then, the next video autoplays and the feeling goes where feelings go. Do not let this one go where the others went. Now let me take you somewhere darker, because there is a man in this Bible who got broken in a place with no witnesses at all. Jonah is in the water. Not the belly of the fish, yet the water. And when he finally speaks, he says something that I think is one of the most underquoted lines in all of Scripture. He says, "The waters closed in over him, and the weeds were wrapped around his head." Weeds around his head. That is not poetry. That is a drowning man's memory. That is the detail you only have if you were actually down there. And then he says the thing that changes everything. "Out of the belly of hell I cried, and you heard my voice." He did not pray on the boat. He did not pray when the storm started. He slept through the storm. He prayed when he was under the water, with weeds in his hair, and no possible way out, and nobody watching. Some of us do not pray honestly until we are underwater. That is not an indictment. That is just the truth about human beings, and God has known it about us since Eden. And here is the mercy in it, that people miss. Jonah's breaking was not the end of his assignment. It was the beginning of it. He does not get sent home after the fish. He gets sent to Nineveh, the greatest city of the age. The assignment he ran from is handed right back to him, and this time he goes, and a city turns. God did not disqualify the man who ran. He soaked him, emptied him, and then trusted him with a nation. If you are down there right now, weeds and all, I need you to hear that your assignment is not canceled. It is being reissued. There is one more, and then I want to ask you something. The night before everything, Jesus turns to Peter and says something strange. He says, "Satan has asked to sift you like wheat." Sift. Think about what sifting is. You take the harvest, and you shake it, and you shake it hard, until everything light and dead and worthless separates from the grain and blows off. It is violent, it is loud, and it is done specifically to save the grain. And what does he say next? He does not say, "I will stop it." He says, "I have prayed for you, that your faith will not fail, and when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." When, not if, he tells Peter, before Peter ever denies him, that the failure is coming, that the sifting is coming, and that on the other side of it, there is a job waiting. Strengthen your brothers. Peter could not have done that job before the courtyard. The Peter who swung a sword in the garden was not qualified to strengthen anybody. He was too certain. He was too whole. He was a man who had never once needed mercy for himself. The man who preached at Pentecost was a man who had wept in a courtyard at the sound of a rooster. 3,000 people came in that day. 3,000. Preached by the guy who blew it worst. That is the pattern, chosen one. That is the whole pattern of God with people, from Genesis forward. He does not use the intact, he uses the mended. There is a woman in a small Tennessee church who bakes the communion bread. Has for 9 years. She gets up early on the first Sunday of the month, and she makes 1 loaf, and she carries it up the aisle in a cloth. And she told me once that for the first few years she hated the part where the pastor tore it. She had worked on that loaf. She had gotten it right. And every month she watched a man split it down the middle, with his hands in front of everybody. Then she buried her husband. And the next month she carried her loaf up that aisle and set it down. And when it came apart in his hands, she sat down in the second pew and wept. Because for the first time in 9 years, she understood what she had been carrying. She said, "I was never making something to be looked at. I was making something to be torn." That is not a nice thought. That is a whole theology, learned on the worst year of a woman's life. And now I have to bring you to the center of it, because everything I have said tonight would be a nice idea if it stopped with us. The Word became flesh, the Logos, the eternal Word, the one who spoke light into a dark place, the one through whom everything that exists was made, took on a body. And on the last night, in a borrowed upper room, he picks up bread. The same 4 verbs. He took it. He blessed it. He broke it. He gave it. And then he says the sentence that ties your suffering to his forever. "This is my body, broken for you." He did not exempt himself from the sequence. He did not teach it from a safe distance. The Logos went first. The word that confirms this pattern is the same word that lived it, in a garden with blood on his face, on a road with a beam on his back, on a hill with his arms open, which means when you are in it, when the clay is cracking, and the light is coming out, and it hurts more than you have words, for you are not being handled by a God who does not understand. You are being handled by hands that have holes in them. That is the confirmation. That is the sacred Logos, speaking over your broken season and calling it holy ground. So here is what I want from you tonight, and I want you to actually do it. In the comments, tell me the exact thing that broke, and tell me the year. Not a vague sentence, not thoughts and prayers. The thing and the year. The marriage in 2018. The business in 2021. The diagnosis in the spring of 2023. The child who stopped calling in the fall. And then tell me one thing you can reach today that you could not reach before it broke. One thing. It might be a person. It might be a room you can now walk into. It might be a prayer you can now pray that you never could have prayed while your life was still intact. I am asking for both halves, because the first half is what you have been staring at, and the second half is what heaven has been staring at, and most of you have never put them in the same sentence before. And after you write it, read what the other people wrote. Scroll for a minute. You are going to find your own story sitting in a stranger's paragraph with a different year on it, and something in you is going to settle. That is the body doing what a body does. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the CR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us. Now, before you go, I want you to picture that hillside one more time. Thousands of people fed. Baskets of leftovers being gathered up at the end, more at the end than there was at the beginning. And not one person in that crowd, not one, ever tasted a whole loaf. Every single one of them ate a piece, a broken piece, handed to them by somebody who got it from somebody who got it from his hands. That is what you are becoming. Not a loaf on a table for people to admire. A piece in somebody's hands, in the dark, when they are starving. Go be bread.